Good evening, everybody. At this time, please silence your cell phones and be advised these proceedings are being recorded. For those physically present in the council chambers who desire to address the city council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form available at the front entrance of the council chambers and present it to the city clerk. Speakers physically present and participating in Zoom will be called upon at an appropriate time, and each person will allow 3 minutes of speaking time. I call this order convened at the regular council meeting Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, and at 6 p.m. And Councilmember Jeff Allen would like to speak tonight. We're honoring 2 residents, and Jeff, it's all yours, buddy. Jeff, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. So tonight we're going to close the meeting in memoriam of 2 longtime Grand Terrace residents who passed away recently. Dale Showman was a longtime resident for, more than 40 years, longer than the city had been a city. And Mr. Doyce Nicola was also a very long-time resident of the city, and both of them just recently, within the past couple of weeks, passed away. Passed away. And so we'll be closing in their memoriam this evening.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, we'll be honoring our 2 residents long time, and God be with their family, give them comfort. And invocation be given by Pastor Masario from the Living Word Church. Pastor, can you come on down and join the podium? And then right after that, John Gallo will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and bow your head.
Father, we just come before you right now, Lord, in the mighty name of Jesus. We thank you for this council meeting, God. Father, we pray for our mayor, God, for everybody that is here, Father. Father, we pray that you just strategize, Lord. Give them ideas, Lord, for our community to enhance what you have for them. We just thank you and we honor you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Pastor, and thank your church again for having a great Easter egg celebration, and you and your wife praying for me over the city and stuff. It's a great celebration, and it was a great thing for the community, so thank you. Okay, AB 2449 to close or announce if there's any member of the legislative body participating remotely, which we don't, just in case of emergency circumstances. Madam City Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Henderson.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez-Robles. Present. Mayor Hussey.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson is absent. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay. Item A, reorder and additions or removal of any items from the agenda. Do we have any?
No additions or deletions.
All right. So tonight's a special night for presentations, and the city clerk wants me to read a lot since we didn't have a meeting last time. So our first one's going to be, and we have Susie here. Can you come and join us at the podium? Down here. Right there at the podium. Is that your grandson or something, or your son or something?
That's my grandson. He's a student at 5th grader at Terrace View.
Okay.
And he's our team mascot for Team SoCal, so we thought we'd bring him today so you could see another thing that we do to promote organ and tissue donation.
Well, he could come down and stand by you. if he
He's
wants.
worried he's going to roll down the stairs.
Well, the Earth is on an orbit, and it does move. I mean, when I went to school, we learned that the Earth was flat, so I don't know, that's a long time ago. Well, that's pretty neat. All right. Well, thank you for joining, and that's pretty neat costume and pretty neat showing aid and stuff. So anyway, well, thanks again for joining us again, Susie. And we're going to read this, and then you could talk about it, and then we'll take a picture, okay? So City of Grand Terrace, proclamation, DMV donation, Donate Life California, whereas organ, eye, tissue Marrow and blood donations are life savings act recognized worldwide and expression of compassion for those in need. Whereas more than 100,000 individual nationwide and more than 20,000 in California are currently on the national organ transplant waiting list, and on average, 17 people die each day while waiting. Whereas the need to donate organs is especially urgent in Hispanic, Latino, and African American communities, whereas a single individual donation of heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestines can save up to 8 lives. Whereas a donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others, whereas organ donors saved more than 42,000 lives last year, the most ever, whereas any person can register to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor, regardless of age or medical condition. Whereas being a registered donor does not impact the quality of life, saving medical care as person receives an emergency. Whereas California residents can sign up for Donate Life California, register online at any time visiting www.donatelifecalifornia.org or Spanish-speaking speakers www.vidacalifornia.org. Whereas California residents can sign up to be organ, eye, and tissue donors when applying for renewing the driver's license or ID cards and a California Department of Motor Vehicles. Whereas residents interested in saving a life through living kidney donations may visit www.livingdonationcalifornia.org. Now, there is to be resolved that I, Bill Hussey, Mayor of Grand Terrace, along with my fellow council members, state that in recognition National Life Donation Month, the month of April 2023 is here as proclaimed DMV Donate Life Month. In the city of Grand Terrace, in doing so, we encourage all Californians to check yes online and applying for renewing their driver's license or ID card at DMV, presented 25th day, April 2023. So I'm sorry it got so late. You know, we were gone in Sacramento last week, and we
No
were trying to
problem.
ask for donations ourselves, but different type.
They weren't given any.
They weren't given any. But can you please talk about your organization?
Yes, I'm here from One Legacy. I'm an ambassador from One Legacy, and I've told my story many times. I've lived in Grand Terrace more than 30 years now, actually. Instead of telling you about my story, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about Team SoCal. I'm the president of the team, and I just wanted to show you that. This last year, the games were held down in San Diego, and they have Olympic-style games, and the big purpose of the games is to honor donors and donor families and to make people aware of the need for more organ donors. So the big thing is pin trading, and so this is the pins with some of my medals, and that's why he's the team mascot for our team. And last year we had 200 people representing Team SoCal from Southern California, including 20 children that had received life-saving transplants. So it's a pretty amazing thing to see, and if you ever have a chance. And this Saturday at Azusa Pacific, we are having our annual walk run. So if anybody wants to come out and join us, I'll be out there from, I think we have to be out there at 6:30 in the morning, but don't tell Liam because it's his day off. All right? But thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And like I say, I don't think you'll get him to come down. I tried to convince him, but he doesn't want to fall down.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll go up there and take a picture with them. Yeah, well, thank you very much. You know, like I told you, I have a cadaver bone that was donated too.
And you're not, I have
Yeah.
one of those, actually. I'm a trifecta. I'm a living donor. I have a cadaver bone in my cervical spine, and we donated my dad's corneas when he passed away.
So, yeah, so it's a great cause, and I think May 10th, we're having a blood donation here at City Hall, I believe, and then, you know, a lot of us give to the, you know, over at the blood bank and stuff, and, you know, it takes an hour and a half process on some platelets and plasmas and stuff.
Yeah, I was
so-
going to say, they usually somehow don't get me out of there in less than 3 when I do my platelets, but
Yeah, but it's all for a good cause.
Yep.
If anybody could do it, you know, it just takes a little bit of time, and, you know, it's going to save a life, but
Yep.
we really appreciate it. Does the council have anything to say? No? Ken? No? Jeff?
Yeah, I'll thank you also for all that your organization does. And it means a lot.
thank you.
All right, well, thank you. And if you'd like to join us for a picture, and then we'll give you your plaque and your pen. It reminds me of that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they ate the Everlasting Gosstopper. Remember that when the little girl, he went, is Carolyn here? Hey, Carol, you want to stand at the podium? You're the next contestant. Go ahead and stand. All right. So we are honoring you for a proclamation for National Day of Prayer.
Yes.
Okay. So Americans have turned to prayer both in times of joy and in times of sorrow. On their voyage to the New World, the earliest settlers prayed that they would rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together, and having before our eyes our commission and community in the work. And whereas from the day forward, Americans have prayed as the means of uniting, guiding, and healing. In days of hardship, tragedies, and in periods of peace and prosperity, prayer has provided reinsurance, substance, and affirmation of a common purpose. And whereas National Day of Prayer is a tradition in this country dating back from 1775, and whereas at the time of our nation, when the power of prayer is needed more than ever, it is fitting for individuals to come forward in the community and publicly demonstrate their faith in the power of divine intersections. And whereas in 1988, the first Thursday in May is permanently chosen as a National Day of Prayer. Whereas the National Day of Prayer belongs to all Americans, it is a day that transcends difference between together, bringing together citizens of all backgrounds. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Bill Hussey, Mayor of the City of Grand Terrace, along with my fellow council members, proclaim May 4th, 2023 as a National Day of Prayer, and invite the residents of our city to give thanks in accordance with their faith and conscience and many other freedoms and blessings. Presented this day, 25 April 2023. Carolyn, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members and members of the public for allowing us to come. I really like your sign that says, "In God We Trust." This is our 30th anniversary to do the Inland Empire Prayer Breakfast. We're the largest prayer breakfast on the National Day of Prayer in Southern California. We have over 500 people coming on Thursday, and I don't have to cook. So we have 30 different churches and ministries come together. We also have a time together not only just to have breakfast. We have a speaker. It's Dr. Richard Hart from Loma Linda University Hospital. And then we have some music, and then we actually pray. This year we have postcards that we send out, and the members of the council may have received our cards in the past, where we pray for people, not just that are in the room, but we pre-dress those cards and we send them out to elected officials and pastors and business people and public safety. If you want to come, you need to talk to me right away. I'm going to leave the information with the clerk, but we have the largest group of firefighters and police coming to our event. The sheriff will be there. So if you want to be safe, come be with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anyone in the council have anything to say? Joe? Well, yes, power of prayer is strong, and, when you ask, did you have something, Ken?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken Henderson. Go ahead.
Just want to thank you for your efforts. National Day of Prayer, as you've indicated, the Inland Empire has always been a leader and always had significant numbers of people attend over the years. And as you mentioned, our first responders, police and fire, have been significant contributors to that process. So thanks again for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, it's comforting to talk and have quiet time with the Lord and pray, and, pray for our first responders, our men and women in the military, and, leaders for wisdom. That's the biggest thing. But, it's, dating all the way back to 1775, it just shows you where our roots are coming from. And,
I wasn't on that committee, by the way.
yeah, you weren't done. Well, I don't know if I lost words then, but back then they had a scroll and stuff. We're giving you a
Yes.
plaque, but a great cause, and this is an honor for us to give you this plaque. So you could join us at the podium, and thank you for
Thank
everything
you.
you do, and God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Michael Sequeiro presented a presentation of San Bernardino County opioid and fentanyl use. Sir, can you join the podium?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Michael Sequeira. I'm the health officer for San Bernardino County. Been a local physician for the past 26 years, president of the Medical Society, and I teach at Loma Linda and UC Riverside Medical School, and I've been the regional director over the ERs of Redlands Community and Arrowhead Regional and St. Mary's, all the way down to Corona Regional and St. Bernardine. So it's a pleasure, and I've always had a pleasure to be able to serve all the citizens in the county, and specifically for you. I wanted to thank Mr. Allen for asking me to help present our message, and it's a vital. It was a vital message, and even before I started, and I didn't realize you had a Bulowich on your staff, but I'm a long-term friend of the Bulowiches, and when Mr. Bulowich came in with his brother as a EMT in the 80s down at Inland Valley Hospital, so.
Well, I don't know if you want to say that in public, at your friends.
Yeah, the Bulowiches are an amazing family, and I value their friendship. So I wanted Today, I won't take a lot of your time, but I think I was given 30 minutes, and I'll make it. But I wanted to talk to you about our current epidemic. What's killing us now, are killing our kids. It's about the fentanyl crisis. You know, the opioid crisis has been around for a while. It started with overprescription of prescription opioids, and it spread to heroin. And now we're in a new phase, fentanyl. And actually, all of the events during the pandemic basically have transpired to make this the perfect storm in terms of killing people. And the shocking thing, the amazing thing is it's killing our adolescents, our teenagers, at numbers greater than we've seen in a very long time. So what is fentanyl? Fentanyl is an opioid. It's a painkiller. It's a relative of codeine or morphine. The key is that it's 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. So it's really powerful. And I've been using fentanyl for many years in the emergency department. If you came in with a dislocated shoulder, I'd give you fentanyl and it'd knock you out. But we'd have a respiratory therapist right there with an IV and oxygen. And you'd be awake in 15, 20 minutes after we reduce your shoulder. So it's been around, but the problem is the drug cartels have learned how to make fentanyl, and it's very cheap and easy to make, and it's actually imported. The ingredients are imported from China to Mexico, and it's manufactured in Mexico, and it's basically spread throughout our community, throughout the United States. And I'm going to show you basically some data to actually show you how pervasive it is. The problem with the potency of fentanyl is, you know, with heroin, if you swallowed heroin, you would not get high because it's not strong enough, and it gets destroyed by the acid in the stomach. And that's why people who had addictions or heroin use disorder basically had to inject it. And that's why we got a lot of problems with HIV, hepatitis C, MRSA, and it it controlled itself in that way because a lot of people just didn't want to inject. But the problem is fentanyl is so powerful that most people who chronically use fentanyl and opioids smoke it. So it's much easier to use. And the shocking thing recently that we've seen is they've been able to put it in pills. And they made the pills at the lower left corner look like sweet tarts. And it looks like candy, okay? 11 to 12 granules of fentanyl in a single pill can kill someone who's never had opioids before. So if you ever take some salt and just count out 11 or 12 granules, that's not a lot. And so they've been putting it in. And the dangerous thing is that it's continuing to spread. This is just a graph of the mortality, the people dying. The blue line is San Bernardino County, and the brown line is California. It's going up what we call a logarithmic curve, and you can see the numbers. There were 30 overdose deaths in the county in 18. And in 19, there were 74, and 227 in 2020. Last year, we had 309, and we're on a pace to pass that this year. So it's definitely out there. It's being put into pills and everything out there that's illicit on the market right now. I'm sorry. They have these little brownie bars called Xanny bars that had been Xanax. It's fentanyl now. Those pills are actually stamped to look like M30s, which are oxycodone, which had been used as a very common drug among teenagers just to get high. They just wanted to get an experienced high. It was kind of a safer high because oxycodone, one pill of that would not kill you. But the problem is they take one pill and it's fentanyl, and it's been killing people. We ran across a very graphic demonstration of this, and we do a children's death review for public health in the county. And one thing, it just struck me, because I'd had a pretty big background dealing with heroin use and dealing with medication-assisted treatment and getting people on treatment. So I was very attuned to overdoses, and what struck me when we reviewed the deaths was every month, 1, 2, 3 kids died of fentanyl overdose. Every month. So I said, let's look at this for 2021 and look at for ages 15 to 17. The biggest killer of our teenagers, ages 15 to 17, is fentanyl. 33% of the deaths that we reviewed for our children, and these are our high school kids. These are middle school kids. And we actually had a 6-year-old who accidentally took a portion of an M30 pill from their parents and died. So fentanyl is killing. We had a newborn death because a mother who had been on fentanyl went into labor, and for labor pain smoked fentanyl. The baby came out dead. So I mean, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. It's scary. So we came out with that, and this in January, the CDC came out with this report. Fentanyl drives startling increases in adolescent overdose deaths. And their data showed that there was a 182% increase in deaths from illicitly manufactured fentanyl. And what I wanted to emphasize, too, is, I'm sorry, the first thing is in the first paragraph at the bottom, what's bold, nearly a quarter of the deaths involved counterfeit pills, those pills that look like sweet tarts, okay? By the way, the San Bernardino County sheriffs have seized over 100,000 of these pills already. There was a seizure in Phoenix of over 2 million of these pills. They're flooding our market. And as good as our law enforcement is, and as good as the DEA is, it's almost impossible to keep these out of our community. And we've got to just presume, and this is the message that we want everyone to presume, that if they take something that's not manufactured is not manufactured by a legal drug company, it may very well have fentanyl. Look at that statement below in brown. Bystanders were present in 2/3 of the overdoses in this age group, and in most cases, the bystanders did not attempt life-saving care. They could have saved these kids if they had one thing: Narcan. So 2/3. I mean, 2/3. I mean, so it's just striking how pervasive, how serious, but also how easy what we can do to actually prevent these deaths and get these kids into therapy. What's interesting, one of the presumptions is, these kids are just bad kids, right, or whatever. And I'm going to talk about that because the whole part of harm, what we call harm reduction, is number one, people with opioid use disorder are not bad people. It's not a character trait, okay? But the other thing is, in spite of the increase in deaths, and the increase in child mortality, second bullet, teen drug and alcohol use is down. Okay, so we're doing a good job. Our students are actually, the students who used illicit drugs dropped from 21% to 8%. It's paradoxical. So, and the last button, the share of 12th grade students drinking alcohol dwindled from 72% in 2002 to 52% in 22. So, and cigarette smoking plummeted from 57 to 17%. So we're doing a good job with our kids. They're listening. But the problem is, how many of us adults went, when we were kids, we'd sneak into our parents' liquor cabinet when they went out, and we'd sneak a little drink just to feel it. And kids experiment. So they're experimenting, but they're experimenting with these little pills that they think is just going to give them high. And the pills are fentanyl, and it's killing them. So that's the danger. So, and this is really again a really interesting statistic that the kids, drug use, alcohol use, smoking is all going down in our kids, and yet they're still dying much more quickly. So what do we have to do in terms of public health? Well, one of the things we're doing is we're doing focused death reviews. I just gave you the data on Children's Death Review, that's CDRT. We're actually taking we've developed a program that actually downloads emergency medical system data on all overdose calls or near overdose calls and all Narcan-associated resuscitations. And we're developing maps, like geo-maps using Esri technology. And we're in the middle of developing this now, and we're able at this time, and the goal is within the next month or two, we're going to be able to isolate outbreaks or hotspots where we can focus our harm reduction efforts. And we're looking at coroner's data too. So with anything you survey, you need to measure, and we need to see where the hotspots are so that we can really get our help out there. And we're actually doing very active harm reduction. Okay, the biggest harm, of course, harm reduction is actually probably the most important development in terms of chronic drug use. And harm reduction is obviously reducing the harm. Okay, it's accepting that the drugs that we have, whether it be alcohol, whether it be opioids, whether it be smoking, it's going to happen, but we got to stop or reduce the harm. Okay. The biggest, of course, immediate harm is the deaths. So, and that's the reason that I was going to present today, just to making a big case, hopefully, for getting naloxone or Narcan out there everywhere. And another very important part is that last part, stigma education. It's really important that we, in terms of harm reduction, is reducing the stigma of use. And, you know, we know, and those of us who study addiction know that addiction is a disease. Okay, there's a very specific portion of the brain that is there and more pronounced in people who have opioid or alcohol or cigarette use disorder. So it's there. Okay, so it's important when we talk about any type of opioid use disorder or other disorder is to recognize that it's a disease. So it's not a character flaw. So that's the thing, you know, we make people feel bad. The ERs would, oh, here's a drug seeker. All he wants is drugs, and you know, and we would treat them badly. And you know, even physicians and nurses that I've actually tried to get to start using these medications are saying, we're just enabling them, right? They can just go out and use drugs, and they can, you know, take the Narcan and wake up again. So the important thing is, if we do that and we shame people, and they're not going to come for help. They're going to do it in back alleys. They're going to do it in their room alone. Those are the things that we don't want them to do. We want them to come to us. And so part of that is not shaming them, is reducing the stigma associated with this. And when you think about high school kids, adolescents, if they're going to go out to a party, how are you going to make sure that they don't have, these are kids that are not hooked on drugs. They're not hooked on fentanyl or heroin. They're just going out. How are we going to make sure that party has Narcan there? If you shame them, they're not going to go. You know, LA County is trying to put it in the schools. Carvalho, the school superintendent, wants it in every single school. But the problem is, if it's in the school nurse's office, what kid is going to come up and say, "We're having a party on Friday night. Can I take some Narcan with me?" You know, it's just. It takes a courageous kid to do that. And we're looking at other ways of doing that, creating, you know, ambassadors, like we have heart academies at our high school, and maybe having kids really get the word out and help us do that. But and the last thing is just identifying and targeting hotspots. So this is what we're doing, and so we're doing all of those things. And the most important thing right now is increasing availability and accessibility of naloxone. It's life-saving, and it's extremely easy to use. And it's basically a nose spray like Afrin. I mean, you have to recognize it and be aware that that person that's not waking up, that's not breathing very well, that may be purple around their mouth, more likely than not is an overdose. And if we had another talk, I'd actually teach you how to do this, but I'm going to just briefly mention it. But we have to do that. Now, I was actually at a recent meeting with the Surgeon General, and he pulled out the Narcan from his pocket, and he said, those of you who've had CPR, the chances are you'll use this to save more lives than CPR. And it's really true. I mean, it's what's killing us and killing our kids. So we recently released a health advisory, and just to bring out the awareness of the threat of fentanyl and what we're doing to reduce the community risk. And just to let you know that we're all banding together. The sheriffs, the DA, behavioral health, public health, superintendent, Arrowhead Regional. We're all getting, the Kaisers, Loma Linda, we formed this Inland Empire Opioid Crisis Coalition, and we're working on these things. And actually, any way we can help, the city of Grand Terrace, our arms are open to help us combat this threat to our citizens, basically. So this is the campaign. There's so many things. We're working with the schools. We're working with the general public. I'm speaking to as many organizations as I can to get the word out. And I've already talked about the harm reduction model. One last thing, just to let you know that there's a new threat. Unfortunately, they always find another way to make money. And this is a new drug called xylazine. The street name is Tranq. And they actually are now lacing it in with the fentanyl. And it actually does the same thing. It causes respiratory depression. In other words, it depresses your breathing. It has this horrible skin reaction, too. It just causes necrosis or dying of the skin, and parts of your skin just slough off. It's a horrible drug. But in Philadelphia, they found a study that they took illicit opioid samples. 90% of those samples had xylazine in it. And the bigger problem is xylazine is not reversed by Narcan. So that's one of the reasons we tell people who approach a possible overdose, call 911, because we don't know if the Narcan may very well just wake them up or possibly even cause them to withdraw. But it might, more and more we're seeing this, and we're actually pressing our coroner and actually our hospitals to start testing for the xylazine or Tranq at the same time. So, and this is what I took as a screenshot. Hopefully kids won't see this too easily, but you can just go online and buy this stuff, xylazine. It's just, it's crazy. So just briefly, back to recognizing an overdose. Basically, anyone who encounters fentanyl in any form shouldn't handle it alone, and they should call 911, just for that reason. There are very few things that will, if you see someone unconscious, and you rub their sternum, you try to wake them up, maybe slap their face, and they're not waking up. And you check their breathing, and they're not breathing or barely breathing. And if you have a flashlight, or you can just close their eyes and then open them, if their pupils are constricted and they're not breathing and they're unconscious, it's an overdose, an opioid overdose, until proven otherwise. And you can count on it. And you really, the most important thing is to give that Narcan, okay? Because it doesn't hurt. And I wanted to briefly talk about that. If I gave anyone here, I'm presuming none of you have opioid use disorder, and if I give you Narcan right now, you wouldn't feel it. It does not make you high. It's not addictive. It's almost non-toxic. It actually causes less harm than Afrin. But the only negative thing about Narcan is that if someone they're addicted or they have an opioid use disorder, it will cause them to withdraw. Because what it does is it displaces all of the opioid from the opioid receptors in the brain, and it causes them to withdraw. So that's really the only risk. And it's just recognizing it, and basically you turn them on their side, and you can basically squirt it in their nose. And that's the little white thing in the nose is exactly what it looks like. It's just, and you just put your two fingers over it, put the thing in the nostrils, and just squirt. It's very easy. And one of the things we do have, especially speaking to you, is the liability. We've had county council and actually national council review this. All of this basically is covered by the Good Samaritan law. And California has a very solid Good Samaritan law. So if you're acting in good faith, you don't, and you're not being paid for the service anyway, no matter what you do, as long as you do it with prudence, you're immune from any kind of prosecution. So it's very safe. It's protected. It's not addictive at all. So there's almost no reason not to give Narcan. No reason not to have it on board and have it around just in case you need it. You don't want to have that kid in that 2/3 majority that could have been saved because you didn't have Narcan around. So we have a lot of resources, and anyone else in any organization, we have people come out. We can actually have you apply. There's a project called the NDP, the Narcan Distribution Project, that organizations can apply, including schools, and they can get free Narcan. And 1,500 units, 2,000 units. I mean, and other organizations are putting Narcan in vending machines. And actually, in San Francisco, on the BART, the BART rail subway, there's a broken glass thing like you would with a fire extinguisher, but it's got Narcan in it. So if you recognize an overdose, you take the hammer, break it open, get the Narcan. So more and more it's being made available, and and we really just have to get it out, and appreciate all that you guys, all the attention here, and any way we can help, we'd love to do it. So that's all I've got. I'd love to answer questions if you have the time, and.
Thank you, Doctor. Does council have any questions? Councilman Allen?
So, I appreciate Dr. Square hearing this again. I heard it the first time, with the school district presentation you gave at the community cabinet, and this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important that we get try to get this product as ambiguous in this community as and in everybody's face and available to anyone possible. So I would just encourage any opportunity that we can take as a body here to facilitate that. I would encourage it. So thank you very much for that presentation.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Allen. Which brings to mind a couple other things that just happened. A couple of months ago, Narcan was declared over the counter, so you don't need a physician prescription for it. And actually, there's a recent law, the Hurtado AB 387, that basically is requiring community colleges, Cal States, and University of California's to have Narcan available on campus at all those institutions. So it's hopefully taking off. And
well, I'd like to see it in all of our schools, classrooms in our city right here, every school we have, because you just explained to us that the youngest ages are being affected.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Doctor, I'm with Councilman Allen, because I like, Madam City Clerk, if we could put those resources on our city's Facebook and in our page about where people can get resources for the Narcan and opioid addiction, fentanyl. My son's Riverside PD, and he makes numerous busts for fentanyl and ghost guns too. Seem to go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Narcan, also for, child activity, children's sports, the coaches, our churches, because we have youth groups and that. So, good resource, hopefully we can spread the words that they'll put in for it to get the free Narcan and stuff. It's going to save a life. I really appreciate it. And, but, the thing is, we got to find out the big picture to take care of. We can't keep Narcan in our way out of this epidemic, so we just have to, parents be aware, and, like you said, kids, good kids, and they might not even know, somebody's, here you go, try this, and okay, and they trust their friend. And, I remember before they used to, lay snow cones with LSD and stuff, you don't know. You could be an innocent victim, but, and some people, they're evil and cruel out there, and they'll do that to them, so. Mm-hmm. But thank you, Doctor, for your information, and we'll put some of that stuff on there. Conrad?
Yeah, the city staff will work with Dr. Sakura and his group to have the city be a point of distribution
Okay.
for Narcan, so that parents, youth groups, whatever, can get access through that, through us, without having to go through any other venue. And I think we
Great.
can work with him on the NDP program.
That'd be great. Well, thank you, sir, for coming out, and thank you, Jeff, for inviting Doctor. All right, so now we have the Lewis Group Company project update presented by Adam and planted by Brian. And you guys, how you doing?
Good evening. Good to see you, Mr. Hussey and fellow council members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and speak and give you an update on this important project. You know, we've been working at this project for a number of years, as you are all well aware. We've had a lot of conversations on how we get this project moving forward, what the challenges are with the project. And we're here tonight to present to you where we are. We're happy that this is a good update where we're standing with this project. You're going to see a lot more of us in the coming months as this comes to the Planning Commission and the City Council for final approvals and kicking off construction later this year. That's the main objective of this. So with that, I will try to keep our comments brief, but please, if you have questions as we go through this, feel free to ask them as we go. I'd rather, have a fluid conversation with you if you have any questions on the project. I'll do brief introductions. My name again is Adam Collier. I'm a vice president with the Lewis Companies, based in Upland. I live in Upland. I've been in the Inland Empire my entire life, raising my 3 kids with my wife. And with me, I have Wynn Messner. She's one of our project managers doing the day-to-day for the project. We have Brian Ortwine. He's kind of our vice president overseeing the multifamily neighborhood for this project. And Spencer Bogner, who oversees the entire multifamily group in Southern California. And then we have Aaron O'Leary behind Brian. He's our senior vice president that oversees my group, which is the Planned Communities Group that oversees a lot of our master plans in Chino, Upland, Ontario, Grand Terrace. And then we also have Rosie Lewis. This is Randall Lewis's daughter. And she's now a 3rd generation employee, day-to-day at the office, helping with the vision of this company moving forward. So it's great to see her here stepping into the role of being that next generation in leadership of this company. And so we're appreciative that she's able to attend tonight too. And Randall does extend his regards. He would like to attend one of the next meetings that we have as we move this forward, so you will start seeing him as well. So with that, in terms of the outline of the presentation, I'll give you a quick update on the vision of the project. Nothing has changed on that front. I'll give you, again, just a quick overview. I know, Ken, you've been around. You were a part of this originally, but I'll give you an update on where things are at. Really the big thing, and I was bummed that Doug wasn't here, unfortunately, but some of the infrastructure updates. There's been some big issues that we've had to resolve over the last couple of years on infrastructure that have kind of stalled this project out. One of them involves an actual potential lawsuit from the city of Riverside against the city of Grand Terrace related to the storm drainage that's coming from the city of Grand Terrace, and I'll get into that in a minute. And we'll also talk about the Taylor Road extension. That's obviously been a big project that you have been eyeing for years that we want to break ground on this year. We'll talk about the Gateway Community Park and the kind of the outreach we've had there. Brian will do a brief presentation on the multifamily neighborhood, as I mentioned. And then we'll talk about kind of the residential and the retail visions for the remainder of the build out of the Gateway community. And then again, the biggest part that I want to go through tonight is really where the specific plan in the EIR is in terms of the status and where we will see that going for final approvals this year. And then I'll quickly wrap it up with the project benefits. So with that, this is the same vision that we had presented to you all many years ago when we started this transaction with the city and moving this vision forward. We really want to create a signature Lewis community that we are invested in, that we have a presence in, that we maintain and own and operate like we do in a lot of our communities in Rancho Cucamonga and Ontario. We want to have that lasting imprint on this city that has value for this city. We're also going to quickly go over what our Independence at Grand Terrace themed is for our multifamily community. That's one of our new multifamily styles that we are doing in a couple communities, and we'll go through that. Again, Randall and Rosie, there's a big value that we invest in with our partnerships with the community through local job fairs, how we partner with school districts. Randall's really big on how we partner with the school districts. He has a good relationship with Colton Unified. And then obviously the emphasis on projects that create value. Not only do we want to have a project that has a lasting impression that adds value to the city, but we want to be proud of it as well. And one of the positives of, when we come in and do a project, we bring in a buyer that has a strong income stream that can really have purchasing power to really support the retail. Because the retail component of this project is really a big vision that we want to implement. And part of that is having enough rooftops to support that, but also having the buying power associated with that to support that demand. So quickly just going through the project overview, many of you are familiar with this. That dashed yellow outline is the area that is covered by the specific plan that we are moving forward that has a new vision for this community. As we've mentioned before, we're challenged with infrastructure. Storm drain is a huge problem in this area. Basically, the entire city of Grand Terrace was built without any downstream storm drainage underneath the I-215 freeway. And I'm going to get into it in a minute on why that's a bigger problem and why it almost caused a legal issue that we're hopefully keeping at bay at the moment. And then, as I said again, the emphasis on housing density. That's critical. Any retailer that we've talked to as we've been advancing our specific plan has been we need rooftops directly adjacent to this retail to emphasize the demand for the retail. So that's when we move forward. We'll talk about the multifamily neighborhood, the density for that, as well as the for sale neighborhood. So quickly going through the infrastructure, one of the biggest challenges we have is the storm drain. Right now, Pico Avenue takes a significant amount of the storm drainage for the city along the southeastern edge. That goes through the Grand Terrace High School and currently drains into the city of Riverside's Riverside Canal. That's that above ground canal that they pump water out of the Santa Ana River, discharge into that canal, and they push it down to the city of Riverside for treatment. That canal was only meant to handle water that was dumped there from their pumps up at the river. However, the city of Grand Terrace, back in the original days when this was all agrarian area, when it was non-developed whatsoever, there was a small channel that was cut in that allowed for water in the events of storms to get into that Riverside Canal, because back then Riverside, like the extra water, was free water. Well, now the problem is the city of Grand Terrace built out everything east of that, built no storm drainage or any basins to offset the fact that you increase the amount of water runoff from developed property. Now that's flooding the Riverside Canal. They've had downstream floods that they have been sued for damages to properties. So now the city of Riverside, when we submitted our hydrology study, which basically analyzes how we're going to handle the stormwater from our project and do the regional basin like we've talked about in the past, they've said, I don't want any more water from the city of Riverside coming to this basin or to this Riverside Canal because you are flooding properties downstream. So if this project doesn't fix that, we eventually will have to sue the city of Grand Terrace over that potential liability. So we've had to totally revamp, redesign our storm drain, our basin. It's taken a good almost 18 months of negotiating with the city of Riverside and Riverside Public Utility on how that basin's going to work. Now we have to discharge to the north up into a very rural canal that doesn't handle the water very well today. That's owned by Southern California Edison. We have to get an easement from the PUC in order to do that. So it's an extremely protracted and complex process, all to handle one singular issue that's bogged this project down for years. It's been a very frustrating process for us and for staff because we kept getting misinformation from the city of Riverside. One day it was, yeah, we'll let in a little bit of water, and then it was, we don't want any water, and it finally resolved with, we don't want any water, and if you don't fix it, we're going to sue you. So we've been able to resolve that with an updated design that resolves that issue, and we're pleasantly surprised we were able to move that forward. The next big one, obviously, is the Taylor Commerce Road extension. The connection from where Taylor exists today down at Main up to where Commerce Way stops today. That's been in the Measure I books for years for the city of Grand Terrace for funding. We've got the plans at almost 90% status in terms of the design. Our plan is to submit the final drawings in the next couple weeks. That'll basically be the entire improvement plan that the city and Lewis can build that roadway on once we are entitled and approved to move forward. So that was a big effort that we've been able to move forward in the last 12 months. And finally, the last one that I personally enjoy because I've had boys in Little League. I know some of the gentlemen that actually are in your Little League board here at Grand Terrace. Tommy Rivero, Jack West are good people. We know Jack through SoCal Gas. We've been meeting with them about the relocation of their existing baseball field, the unlit baseball field that the high school built without lights. And that's been a huge subject of consternation for them because it's coming out of COVID, and we're seeing this in our Little League too. Little League is exploding. Almost every youth program right now is exploding now that we're coming out of COVID. Kids are coming back out, getting involved in youth programming. They don't have lights on that field. In today's world, when you have both parents working, by the time you get home, the only time you can play is in the evening or at night. So they have a field that basically is sitting there during the weekdays that they can only use for young children because in the evenings, once it gets dark, that field is unusable. So to them, they only have one baseball field in today's context of, two working parents. So this, and I'll get to it a little bit on the concept for that park, but working with them and putting it and swapping out existing property for a larger park with a lighted baseball field. Tommy, Jack, they love it. There's other community members that are part of that league that are way behind this as well. They're going to be excited to come forward and speak in favor of this project as we move forward because it does add a lot of value for them as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian just to run through briefly, our apartment division, what they do, how much they've done, and the vision for this community.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak here tonight. As Adam said, I'm going to start out with a quick overview of Lewis Apartment Communities, and then I'll get into our vision for the community. Lewis has developed over 11,500 rental residences. We still own and manage 99% of those. And we manage them with a best-in-class and in-house property management group. Now, the takeaway from that is when we move forward with a project here, we're here for the long term, and we're here for the long term with a best-in-class property management group, because their team is committed to a focus on customer service, relationships, and maintaining their developments to well above industry standards. This is evident with the fact that they've won 16 years in running a CEL and Associates National Multifamily Customer Service Award. This makes us one of the top property management firms in the country for a firm of our size. Oh, jump forward. So following up on Adam's slide of the Lewis vision, what we're proposing here is a unique rental product that is built and lives like a single-family home. We will attract renters with a higher household income and therefore have a little bit more discretionary funds to spend within the community, reinforcing the retail development, as Adam mentioned earlier. It's really a build-for-rent community of duplexes, offering a low-maintenance lifestyle of renting, but a lifestyle that's more in line with a single-family home. These type of floor plans have generous outdoor spaces, have private yards, open floor plans, and we think it's really going to drive value here. Just some concept photos from some of our other communities. On the left side is a two-story duplex product, very similar to what we're going to be proposing here. On the top right is an interior photo showing just the high level of finish, high level of design that comes along with a Lewis rental unit. Same thing on the bottom left. This is an open floor plan reinforcing that great room concept that you see all over for sale product these days that we brought into a rental home. On the top right is, again, just touching on the high level of finish and a very luxurious bathroom for a rental. These are two photos showing the outdoor spaces for some of our units. The left is a patio. The top one is a second floor deck, but it really reinforces that commitment that we have to Southern California outdoor living and what renters really value today. So that brings me to the site plan. The site plan has two different product types, both duplexes. Along the perimeter of the site, I'll try and laser it there and there, we have our small duplex product. Those front doors open to the perimeter of the site. So it really opens up to the community outside and just doesn't turn its back on, have a backyard wall running around the perimeter of the project. The main entry is there in the middle of the site off Van Buren. To the right is the leasing building and fitness center, pool, spa, tot lot, outdoor community gathering space with barbecues and outdoor dining. And then in interior, we have what we call our backyard duplex product. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in the coming slides. So this is a rendering of that product. You can kind of get a sense of the scale, the feeling of that backyard product that is internal to the project. It really does feel like a single-family neighborhood. This is a representative diagram showing how that product works. It's a kind of a typical block. All the red arrows that you see here are representative of the front door. As you can see that they're all located on the same side of the house as the garage. What this does is it allows each home to have a private backyard. This is a big deal for people with pets, as most people do these days. We'd finish out all these yards with hardscape to keep that maintenance level low. but still give people their own private space in the backyard. And then this is the small duplex product, and this is what along Van Buren would look like. So a very well-finished, nice, community centered, nice street scene type of product. Thank you. Adam.
So one of the things that we want to maintain some flexibility for, and I talked to Randall Lewis actually this afternoon about this topic. I'll go back to the land use plan at the very beginning of this slide so you can see some of the different planning areas. But the Independence at Grand Terrace product is going to go on planning areas 11 and 12 on that exhibit. That's north of Van Buren. The other area south of Van Buren, that's planning area 19. That also includes planning area 20 is the existing baseball field that's out there that's unlit. And the idea is we would swap that planning area 20 with planning area 22, which is a larger park. And I'll get into the park detail and the Paseo in a minute on that. But we are definitely moving forward with a multifamily neighborhood on planning areas 11 and 12, as I mentioned. Randall would like to move forward with a multifamily extension to planning area 19 as well. However, just depending upon the market, we do want to retain some flexibility to do a for sale neighborhood, which is also what we do a lot of. Chino, Ontario, all our master plans there. We have a number of tracks that we sell off to builders to build different product types. And so I'll go back to some of the images there. Let's see. Oops, sorry, too far. And so again, you get into different alley load products. You have Paseos. You can see the middle. That's a Paseo product there. This is a 3-story. This would be a Paseo product there as well. Again, a variety of motor courts. Again, a number of different styles that we have flexibility on when depending upon where the market's at, what a builder wants to build in Grand Terrace. There is high demand right now for this area. It's in a unique spot. Grand Terrace, a lot of people, you pass it so quickly on the freeway, a lot of people don't always know that, but in terms of a market for housing, it's in a great spot because you're right between Loma Linda, San Bernardino, Riverside. There's a number of professionals, blue-collar workers that are all in this corridor that are transitioning, that are going out to Beaumont Banning or going out to Moreno Valley to the south. We have a great market here in the middle that has a strong niche to pull from some of those employment centers that are in Loma Linda and Riverside. That's a lot closer. So we see a lot of opportunity here for the for sale neighborhood, if we were able to move forward with that. And then finally, on the retail side, as I mentioned to some of you in the past, this is one of the most challenging components of the project. Until we have the density and the rooftops in place. However, as you all know, there's also a lot of ownership differences, different property owners along DeBerry Street that have different alignments and different ideas on when they want to move forward and for how much they want to move forward. There's some folks that want a lot of money for their property that don't understand the constraints of what it actually costs to build on their property or what other physical impediments there may be to their property. So the retail has been one of the most challenging aspects in terms of trying to get assemblages together to make enough of a mass to build a retail center. So some of these images are representative of projects in Norco, Rancho Cucamonga. The bottom one is Rialto that we've done recently as well. So we want to move forward with this. I think the biggest challenge is getting the road through, getting some rooftops in place or at least approved and in place, because a retailer isn't really going to talk to me about the viability until they know there's an exact plan for when that road's going to be there and when the housing is going to be there. So that's the two competing interests we have. So again, we want to work hard on this and assembling and trying to move forward with a concept here. We're just challenged at the moment on that front. So the Gateway Park, as I mentioned, this is kind of my little baby too. This shows a 200-foot baseball field. That's a standard Little League field that you can play up to a major division standard for an all-star tournament. Again, it's lit baseball fields. One thing I haven't added to this plan yet that the Little League really wanted is important to them was some batting cages. That's also critical. My Little League has them, so we want to add those. It's a key component. One of the other things is there will be a pedestrian paseo. There's that Edison corridor. You probably are familiar with those tall H poles that run up through the middle of the city there. There's going to be a public paseo that's going to run between Veterans Freedom Park and this planned Gateway Park with lighted bollards and landscaping so you have a safe pedestrian corridor. So if you have a kid playing a baseball game at Veterans Freedom Park, you can just ride your bike down to this park if you've got an older sibling playing here, or vice versa. You want to have a nice kind of interactive environment and keep that lit and safe, have eyes on the park. There'll be a maintenance access road that's accessible for police services, because Edison also has to maintain access to those poles as well. But again, we want to provide a safe space. That was one of the comments from Little League. We need lights to be able to traverse this at night if we have games going on between the two. So we want to have it nice and open and, eyes on it to keep it safe. And so with that, this is the kind of the key component that we want to talk to you all about. So we submitted our final draft of the specific plan to staff last week. As of today, we also submitted the final screen check draft environmental impact report today. That's basically the public review draft version of the EIR that is ready to be published and circulated for 45 days under state law. So our goal is to get that draft EIR circulated in May of 2023 to start that 45-day public review process. That's a mandatory process. And we want to target our final approvals in July or August at the latest, because with the basis of where our plans are at and the status of our improvement plans, we should be able to break ground by the end of this year and start the Taylor Commerce Road. You have the Project Condor battery storage facility that is also moving forward. We're directly coordinating with them and staff right now on implementing improvements along their frontage and coordinating on that. So the goal is to have this corridor, this gateway entrance to the city under construction by the end of this year and finally deliver that project. So just again, quickly going through some of the benefits of the project. Obviously, for the city, having that true new entrance and gateway at the southern end at Main Street, taking all the traffic that's on Michigan, bypassing the 215 today, pulling that over to this road to pull that traffic and relieve those streets from congestion is obviously a huge concern and a big win for the city. Storm drainage, we've talked about this too. That's a big commitment that we have to deal with the storm drain issues on Michigan. You have so much water, so much velocity of water coming down those streets when it rains that it's truly unsafe for pedestrians or kids trying to go to school. So we're able to solve that issue at Michigan and Van Buren, and also extend storm drain to get it also extended in the future up to Pico in that intersection in Michigan. So that'll provide a lot of relief at those intersections. And then finally, that regional basin, I talked about that. That's a key component. Without that, this project would never move forward. The rest of the city couldn't even expand because of some of the drainage issues that we have. And there's the property tax revenue from the development will help the city's general fund. The Gateway Park will make the Little League happy. Again, were frustrated with the result of how that field was built. That solves their issue. And again, we're excited to try to move this project forward by the end of this year. So with that, I will open it to any questions, comments, and go from there.
Well, thank you, Adam. City Attorney, what questions can we ask on this, because it's a project?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, this project, as the speaker has indicated, will be coming before the City Council and Planning Commission at some point. It'll go before the Planning Commission first for a recommendation on a specific plan, and then it would come to the City Council for adoption. So tonight, I would limit to just asking questions and getting clarifications about the project. I would not provide any opinions about the project. I would save that till when the project comes before you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any brief questions or comments? Councilmember Henderson?
First off, I want to thank the Lewis Group for tonight's presentation. It's important that the council hear what you had to say tonight and the community become aware of what exactly the Gateway project is all about. Just by way of background, the Lewis folks already know this. When I served as city manager for Grand Terrace from 2014 to 2015, the first call I made to a development concern was the Lewis Group. And we talked about this particular project and what it could do for the city of Grand Terrace. My last day on the job was January 2015. So it's 2023. I mention that because it's important that the community understand on a project like this how significant and long-term the effort must be in order to bring it into fruition. A lot of time has been spent, a lot of money has been spent. One of the things, well, let me back up just a bit because according to the city attorney, we need to be careful with our comments. It is a project that I think puts Grand Terrace on the map. And I'll just conclude by saying North Riverside, Colton, Loma Linda, South San Bernardino, we're right in the middle. And if you have a choice to go to, if you live in Redlands or Loma Linda or Colton, and you have a choice to go shopping, you might have to go to the Galleria Tyler in Riverside. And here's a situation where we intercept that traffic. And we do a lot of other good things if, in fact, this project comes about. The beauty of this particular project from a specific planning standpoint is that it is in the southwest portion of the city, and meaning that it doesn't necessarily negatively impact any of our existing neighborhoods. That's very difficult to do in urbanized Southern California. I can see the city manager and the city attorney being somewhat uneasy with my comments, so I'll limit it at this point. But thanks again for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Allen?
Thanks, thanks, Mayor, and thank you for that great presentation. I like the graphics. I'd like to ask you, will you be building this graphics that you've shown us? Is this rental or is this for sale?
So this site plan you see here is the for rent community that Brian was providing the overview on.
Yeah, and so I know you had mentioned the units that are around the perimeter where you're how should I say, the least expensive choice. Was that correct?
No, they were oriented to the street to have a better street scene on Van Buren.
Oh, okay.
That was one of Mr. Bolowich's great ideas.
Yeah.
It actually resonated well. That's why those doors were all turned to face towards Van Buren to give you a better experience as you drive down Van Buren.
Yeah, I like it too. My question is, I hope that wasn't bad. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Okay.
Yeah, just.
Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. But what I wanted to ask you is, how many are you putting in here? How many units are going in here?
This site plan is 354? 58, it's off by 4. 358 units.
Of varying sizes and rents.
Correct. The band, though, is probably fairly narrow on the rents because they are very similar product types.
Mm-hmm.
And then some, the rent would be adjusted if there was call it a more negative location than another, right? So that just like you would buy a home, you'd want to buy it at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's going to probably cost you more, those types of things.
Were these on the market today, what would they rent for in this position right here in Grand Terrace, were this complete?
Yeah, I mean, if they were renting today, our projected rents are somewhere around $3,000 for the average square footage within there, but there's a range there. The range is probably $2,680 to $3,400, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Councilman Robles, you have anything?
I just want to say it was so thorough, I don't have it.
I'll take it.
Wow, on that note, no, thank you, Adam and Brian. Thank you guys for coming out, and hopefully we'll see you at Planning Commission and everything else. So,
Always good to see you, and we'll see you more often.
yeah.
Shortly, though.
What's that? City Clerk, I can't read lips. I try to do my wife, too.
I was trying. We have a member of the public that would like to comment on this
I don't
item.
think this is a comment thing, is it? Open to the comment?
Yes, the Brown Act allows for comment on any item
Okay.
on the agenda.
All right, well, as long as we're doing legal stuff, that's all I
Yeah.
want to know. Okay, who's
Bobby Forbes.
Bobby Forbes?
Thank you. I'm glad I came to the meeting tonight because I did not see the agenda ahead of time. I wonder, will you continue with this project if you don't get the land for the commercial area? That's one question. And it's kind of, as a realtor, I know that the rents are high. It's $2,300 for a two-bedroom at the Highlands right now. And it's just amazing that people can afford that, much less that, at $3,000. And that's just your prediction for right now. Who knows what it will be in a year. I like that you turned around the front doors. If you look at Hidden Gate, their back patios are up against DeBerry Street. It makes more sense that they have a private backyard. But the townhomes also on DeBerry Street that Barney Carger's son built, their front door opens to the street and they have noise all the time. So it's hard to win, but it's worth a try. That's a lot of houses. It's going to be a lot of people, a lot of parking. I noticed there's no place to park cars except in the garage.
It appears anyway, that's good.
It's hard to see, but there are a lot of parking on the street surrounding, but yes.
Yeah, so that's an issue with the units that are existing on DeBerry now, the row homes, parking, because they have an alley behind them, and the apartments park in front of them. So these are just my points. You know, we get huge vehicles. The younger the people are, the bigger the cars are. The bigger the trucks are, the more toys. They won't be able to park toys there. Hopefully there's enough guest parking. Cape Terrace has 98 units, very little guest parking. I have a unit selling in there right now. It's well over $400,000. If it was to rent, I'm sure it would be $2,800 a month. So these are just things for the community to look at. Who's going to be able to afford to live there? And I know this is a huge project. We've interacted before. But I am curious as to whether or not the project will continue if you can't buy the property for the commercial. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Forbes. So I'm sure, you know, when we had the Planning Commission and the other agenda, those questions will be answered. All right, anything else? No? Well, thank you for coming out, and we really appreciate your presentation and, you know, taking the time out with us tonight and, you know, just letting the public know what's going, and best of luck to you, and thank you.
Say hello to Randall and Bob Martin.
That'll do.
Pardon me, Mayor?
Okay, so our next thing is the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon the city council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of an item from the consent calendar. So do we have any consent calendar motions want to be removed? Mr. Henderson, or talked about?
Item number 9.
Item 9. Anything else? City Manager, do you have anything on it?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so item 9, removal for future deliberation. So do I have a motion for the 1 through 8 and 10 and 11?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Robles and second by Councilman Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Councilman Henderson, item 9.
The council, I believe, received the city manager's response to the questions that I had regarding the housing element that's in the process of being resubmitted to the state of California. And in the city manager's response, he indicated that the regional housing needs assessment numbers were not necessarily a part of the annual review by the State Housing and Community Development Department. My concern is when you look at the city's performance over the current cycle, it's difficult for me to understand how the progress or lack of progress, depending on how you look at it, would not be part of the evaluation process that the State Housing and Community Development Department enters into when looking at the annual planning performance reports. A bigger concern for me is...
Councilmember Henderson, before you continue, the item that you pulled was item 9, which was CDBG.
I'm sorry. It's supposed to be my mistake.
Yeah, so item 8 is...
Item 8, yes. Excuse me.
So...
We have to amend the motion?
So what I would request is a motion to reconsider the previous motion and vote on that, and we'll redo the consent calendar.
Well, let's start this all over. So we're going to make a motion to rescind the previous motion?
It was my motion, so I'm going to adjust my motion to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of C8 and put on C9 on the consent calendar.
Okay, so I would do motion to reconsider
Okay.
the previous vote. So you made that motion to
Okay.
reconsider?
Motion to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Second there.
Second.
Let's take that vote.
All right. So vote again. Please vote.
I was taking your job.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so now the slate is clean. Now you can make the motion. And the appropriate motion is to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of item number 8.
So
Make the motion to adopt the consent calendar with the exception of C8.
Okay, second?
a second.
Second.
Please vote again. My finger's getting a lot of exercise.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Henderson, you have a question, discussion, item 8.
I had a question or a comment, actually, and I'll try to be concise. As I indicated, I had some questions for the manager, and he responded, providing all of the information to the remaining members of the city council, which I very much appreciate. My concern revolves around the fact that we have some legislative concerns regarding housing in California. We have a very aggressive governor who is unsympathetic to the local plight that cities have regarding providing affordable housing, and is pushing legislation and administrative actions which I believe could potentially impact many cities in California, including Grand Terrace. I worked for a city where we had submitted a housing element application under the same circumstances. We were only one of two communities in the state to receive approval in that round. And it became increasingly difficult for those cities that were not successful in gaining approval. Most importantly, one of my primary, if not the major concern, is that the Grand Terrace Planning Commission and the Grand Terrace City Council have to make consistency findings. Meaning when we approve a project, there's a finding, typically a standard finding, that that development is consistent with the Grand Terrace general plan. At some point, if you don't have an approved housing element, you can't make that consistency finding. And if you can't make the consistency finding, you can't approve development. That's the bottom line. There are a number of examples of cities that have encountered this particular issue in dealing with the state Housing and Community Development Department. So I say all of that to say this: it's an important concern. It will become increasingly important, and it's something that the typical administrative review process by HCD can turn into something adversarial and not in our best interest, with just a change in administrator, an approval of a new law, or a change in the governor's approach to housing element review and approval process. The governor's already made it abundantly clear that he is dissatisfied to the nth degree regarding progress made on a statewide basis with respect to affordable housing. So when you look at our statistics and you look at the reporting period, it's hard to escape the conclusion that that is going to be perceived as satisfactory in this second time around when we submit our housing element for approval. I just wanted to get those comments in the record. I'm prepared to support the staff recommendation, but it is something that I think we need to be mindful of going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. So are you making a motion?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion for approval item
Second.
8, second by Councilmember Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, this time we have the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon the city council at one time without
Pardon me,
discussion.
Mayor. Sorry, I apologize. We just did the consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we'll just start all over again. Public comment.
Where am I?
See what happens when you miss a month, you know, and then you send us to Sacramento, we're all scatterbrained.
Whatever I had is contagious.
Yeah, what'd you put in my water can?
Yeah.
All right, public comment, correct? All right, so let's try this again. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because restrictions contained in California law, the city council may not discuss or act on any items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made and or ask a question for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during the public comment, or may request the matter be agendized for further meeting. So do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do, sir. The first one is Robert Sanchez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Robert Sanchez. I've been a part of the community for about 22 years now. Currently live at 22893 Grand Terrace Road. Been there about 8 years now. What I've noticed in the last few years is the speed on this road. I live just west of the senior citizen as well as Terrace View Elementary. As you know, that street does not have a lot of sidewalks. Once you pass a couple of those houses there, there's no sidewalks. You're seeing families, you're seeing kids riding their bikes. Very dangerous. I just want to see if the council can consider, signs aren't working. Let's be honest. The stop signs at Mount Vernon and Grand Terrace Road, people run them all the time. We need something to slow that traffic down. I mean, I just don't want somebody to get injured. That's why I'm here today. Could it be a speed bump? There's been issues like, well, nobody wants it in front of their house. Put it in front of my house. If it's going to help save people from getting in an accident, put it in front of my house. There's a part in that street where it's a blind spot. Once you get going, there's one spot that's a blind spot. So I'm just here because of safety. I mean, I just don't want somebody to get hurt. I see too many families walking up and down that street, and there's some near misses. So that's my common concern, and that's why I'm coming to the council today. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And you know, you're right, we have a lot of, throughout the city, speeders. And unfortunately, there's no more California stops. People just go right through the stop signs. But we did have a grant for traffic control, so I know the lieutenant wrote down your address and stuff. So I'm sure, you know, we do the best we can and catch them. But yeah, as far as I had the city manager get with you if you leave your information, and he could get. But yes, it's an ongoing thing throughout the city, and it's sad that it has to be that way and stuff. So. But we have your information, and we'll get back with you. Thank you, sir, for coming out tonight and voicing. Okay, we have anybody else?
Yes, sir. Michelle Sabino.
Michelle? You can go up there. Push the button for the mic.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Sabino. I'm a resident of Grand Terrace, and I just wanted to come and share information again regarding legislation that's coming down from Sacramento that just impacts our community as a whole. I'm not sure if the community is aware, but last legislative session, SB 357 was passed, and under SB 357, it legalized loitering with the intent of engaging in prostitution. That was passed by Senator Wiener up in Sacramento. As of today, actually to be shared tomorrow, there were four girls who were just rescued from human trafficking just in Colton. And so those are our neighbors. And to the other side of us, we have San Bernardino, where it is a hub for human trafficking. So much so that it's happening outside of the school districts, of elementary schools. And so today, SB 14 did pass out of public safety, and that bill would make human trafficking a violent felony. And so I believe that these are things that we should be aware of, especially when we're looking at housing coming in, when we're looking at being able to support large numbers of people coming into the community who might not have been here before. We want to be able to show that we continue to be able to protect our community. AB 1090 is also another bill that is in Sacramento right now. It is being sent to the Committee of Local Government, and in that committee, what it says is that a Board of Supervisor, the County Board of Supervisor, can remove an elected sheriff. I think our sheriffs do a great job. They are law enforcement. If we look at cities like San Bernardino, cities like Colton, their police departments are corporations. They are not the law enforcement officers that have the due diligence and obligation not only to our cities but to our counties. And so I wanted to put that on the council's radar, because there are issues that are happening that people can travel into Grand Terrace. You know, we are not exempt. We don't have a wall that protects us. And with those things happening in our neighboring counties, I believe that those things should be of great importance to us, especially when we have a state legislature that protects criminals and not victims, and that further jeopardizes the safety of our community. I love our town. I specifically moved here because of the safety and the family environment, and I would like to maintain that. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for the information. Anybody else?
No, Mayor.
All right, we'll go ahead and then close public comment. And public hearings, none. Unfinished business, none. New business. Memorandum of Understanding between Colton Joint Unified School District and the City of Grand Terrace regarding crossing guards, presented by the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you. For a little background, in 2017, the City of Grand Terrace entered into a 4-year agreement with Colton Unified School District. Actually, it was 4 one-year sequential agreements to provide crossing guards at Grand Terrace Elementary School, specifically for Barton Road and Michigan Street crossing. Back then, now we know it as Barton and Vivienda Avenue. That first year cost was about $8,700. It kept going up year over year. The city is responsible for by this agreement, the city was responsible for 100% of the costs, whatever they may be. Colton School District submitted an updated new agreement, essentially the same document for 1 year, 1 year with 4 extensions, with an estimated first year cost of $15,519. So, which is almost a doubling in 4 years on the cost of performing this service. So I did some research, called our neighboring cities. Redlands does provide crossing guard service through their police department at some of their schools. Colton, Loma Linda, San Bernardino, Rialto do not provide any crossing guard services at any of their schools. So the question to you is, and Colton is in Colton School District, so they're not providing it. The question to you is, do we want to engage with this? This is a school activity, a school function, and one side of the argument is that the school is there and this is school activity, so it should be a school responsibility. The other side of the argument is that it is Grand Terrace streets, and that we do want to do what we can to help out the school district to provide, if they're not doing it, to provide a safe route for our students. So what I'm looking for is direction from you to whether or not to continue with this, and then at your direction to approve the agreement, or to either try and go back and modify it, or to let them know that we're not interested. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Councilman Allen?
Hey, what school year would this commence on? The next one, 23-24, or would it commence immediately, or what?
This is actually retroactive. So we're getting the agreement for the 22-23 school year.
So if we say if we agree with this, then this 15,500 is going to pay for the last year.
Correct.
And then we're going to automatically be needing to do an extension, right?
Correct.
For probably more than that.
I don't have a price for the next one, but if the trend is true, yes.
Do we have any data on the 3 intersections where they want these at? And if they, by data, I mean like incidents involved that requiring the need of a crossing guard, any accidents, any pedestrians hit? Do we have any of that data?
We do not have from law enforcement. What I do have is just from what I've been told by residents and individuals of the district, that there were 3 either near misses or light contact incidents in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But I don't have any reports of anything through the sheriff's department. They were not substantial enough to trigger those or to
Right.
trigger a report.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Robles?
What strikes me here, and the reason I'm asking this question is because we're talking about the division of responsibility between the school district for school district activities, but yet we've been paying for a couple of years for a senior parade. How much are we spending for that?
We are spending about $3,000 for the senior parade.
Okay, only 3,000, okay. Thank you.
Councilman Henderson, you have something?
I've been involved in both sides of the issue with crossing guards, working in previous cities, and there was lots of discussion about it. Speaking only for myself, I'm not inclined to support the request, partly because of the history that I have with various school districts and the costs associated with the crossing guard program and other issues, other joint use and joint maintenance agreements with various districts. It's a basic core responsibility for the school district, in my view, the safety of the students. It's a relatively nominal amount in the general scheme of things, but I think the core responsibility, in my view, trumps the amount that's being proposed, or the amount that we would have to assume if, in fact, we agreed to this particular proposal from Colton Joint Unified School District. I think that we should pass on this proposal from the district and indicate, our rationale for declining their offer, so to speak. But I'm only speaking for myself. I don't know if my colleagues support that position or not. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Allen?
I have 2, or a question and a comment. I guess it goes without saying that if we don't fund it, it won't get funded, so it won't happen. And I'm not in disagreement with you, Councilmember Henderson. I'm stating the obvious to me anyway, because I don't think the school district, if they're not going to provide crossing guards in their own city of Colton, they're not going to do it outside their city either, I don't think. But my question is, I was just wondering if Lieutenant Lane has any insight on these 3 intersections and the need or lack of need for a crossing guard. And if you don't, I understand, that's fine too.
And Lane?
Well, I think the shortest answer to that question is no. I don't really have any specific opinion about those 3 intersections. The question raised about what data we have about incidents or things that have occurred, I'm unable to retrieve at this point due to circumstances beyond my control. with our data that we currently have. So certainly something that if we get up and running in the near future, I can maybe come back with. But off the top of my head, I don't have any information.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Colton's not paying, but I see crossing guards there when I drive through the elementary schools in the morning. So somebody's paying for the crossing guards. The reason, I think, if memory serves me right, this was brought forward because the school they eliminated all crossing guards for budget restraints. And we had a young man on Barton and Michigan got hit by a car, but he was all right, and ended up turning into a hit and run, but the lady didn't know she hit him because she stopped and then the kid got up. So the city of Grand Terrace saw the need for public safety, and that's why that was brought. Now, when this is brought to me again, I thought that was a one and done year until Colton Joint Unified had their money, their budget back. And I don't know why they didn't have the budget back in 2017. I don't think we were going through any physical crisis back then. But I think, of all these intersections, Barton and Michigan's the most crucial one because that's a big road. And we know, unfortunately, people don't stop. So what do? We go back and tell Colton, hey, that was an agreement just to help you out until you got your budget back, and then negotiate with them and say we can no longer afford it, and then see what they say. And then if they say, well, yeah, we're not going to provide it, do we provide at least one crossing guard at our most dangerous intersection, the biggest one with the most traffic? I don't know. Any thoughts, Sylvia?
Okay, so we're in deliberations now. So my feeling is
Mr. Mayor,
this.
but yeah, before we do get into full
Okay.
deliberations, we should hear from the public and then.
Okay.
I'm sorry, do we have any public comment on this?
No, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think we need to be consistent with what a senior parade for a school district is a school district responsibility. School crossing guards for the school district are their responsibility. So I think we need to be sober enough that because we're politicians, we get kind of emotional when there's things we want to support. We all have our pet issues. I have mine, which we had a meeting on today on a subcommittee. But, I want to be consistent because sitting here as a policymaker, I don't want to be told later on that here was a situation where a child, and it was caught on our camera, I remember, that we had, that got hit. So then we get involved. But then we say we don't want to get involved because of the cost, but then we're turning around and doing other school district events with our money. So I would think that the best thing for us to do is we have to pay retroactively the item and then send the balance of future years out for a renegotiation for further discussion, at least.
So is that your motion?
Yes, I can make that into a motion.
Okay. All right, before we do a second, Councilmember Allen, you have something you want to talk about?
Does that motion need to be seconded first? And if it does, then I didn't even understand what the motion would be.
So the motion is that we pay the retroactive amount due and then direct staff to renegotiate any future years and come back with a recommendation.
I'll second it for discussion because I have a question on that very motion.
Okay.
How much is the retroactive amount, if there is an amount?
15,519.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the agreement, for whatever reason, was for the 22-23 school year, which is over here in a couple of weeks. And then it would be one-year extensions beyond that.
So the current, there is an agreement in place, is that correct? Does it expire at the end of the school year, is that it? Or are they operating without an
But I can see
agreement?
the agreement expired at the end of the 21-22 school year, last year this time. They continued providing the services with the assumption that we would then sign the agreement.
Under the assumption.
But this is for the 22-23 school year. So it would be paying for essentially this school year, not the next school year.
Mhm.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. And a question?
Not to put the manager on the spot, but I guess to put the manager on the spot, is it a fair assessment, sir, to reasonably conclude that rather than recommend against, you ask for direction in the motion?
I am asking for this is in my view, a policy decision and a decision that council is going to set direction for. So, and I can argue either side of this or any portion of it in any direction you'd like me to.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Allen?
So regardless of the direction, well, not regardless of any direction, but were we to choose, if we were to give you the direction, like the motion that's on the table right now, and we don't reach an agreement with them, and we don't provide any future, we don't pay for any, in other words, future crossing guards, is that defendable in court in case there's an accident?
Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah, it's if we decide to stop paying for crossing guards and there's an accident, was our decision defendable in court, or will the city be held liable? Is there the possibility that we'll be held liable for any injuries because we didn't have a crossing guard?
The question is that our obligation to provide a crossing guard? And there's no state law saying that the city is required to provide a crossing guard, as evidenced by the other cities that have not chosen to do that. Obviously, somebody could always raise a claim and say, you should have. And who knows what a court would conclude, but again, there's no obligation that I'm aware of.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm happy to look into it. I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head, but I'm happy to look into it some more.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, so you're going to have, there's a motion to pay this balance for this year in a second, and then we're going to talk about looking to negotiation for the crossing guard, see why are they still charging the city? And correct?
That is the way I understand it. The motion is that we are to do the 1 year and then come back to you with anything beyond that for discussion.
And then find out for public safety and, so. Anyway, so we have a motion and a second on that. Anything else, city attorney, for that?
No, I mean, I do want to make you aware, I mean, legally, we are not required to pay anything unless we approve the contract. So I want you to know that you do have that option, technically under applicable law, that any contract with the city, to be binding on the city, must be in writing and must be approved by the city. So at this point, this contract dated July 1, 2022, has never been signed. And as Councilmember Allen pointed out, there was an assumption that we would agree to it. We never have. It was never presented to us. So legally, technically, the city is not obligated to pay. We're not obligated to agree to this at this point. We can, and if we feel like, hey, they did provide the service and we morally want to pay for it, that's on the council to make that call. Going forward, I would agree with city manager. We should negotiate the terms. At this point, they're just giving us take it or leave it. But I agree with the city manager, if the council is interested in exploring for the 23-24 year, we should explore what the pricing is and negotiate that appropriately and then bring that to the council before, preferably before the school year.
So that changes.
Yeah, so, yeah, that changes. So legally, we could tell them to, we're not paying you, you should have came and negotiated during the earlier the school year.
No, her motion is that we will pay for this and as a good faith gesture. We're not obligated, but we're good I'm going to argue one side now, I'm going to argue the other one. We're good neighbors in good faith. We will pay this, and we're going to go back and negotiate for future items. This is what I take the motion as.
Okay.
And one further note, so Section 8 of the agreement does provide that the agreement terminates 1 year after the effective date. So the effective date was July 1st, 2022. So technically it expires July 1st, 2023, or June 30th. But we may extend the term for an additional 1 year for up to 4 years. So again, doesn't mean we can't negotiate the terms, but we have that ability to extend it if we so choose by July 1st.
All right. Any other questions, comments before we vote? No?
And one last thing, sorry, Mayor, just because I'm reading through the provision. It does provide that the parties must give each other written notice of the intent to extend the MOU at least 30 days prior to the conclusion of the term. So that would mean if we wish to extend the agreement, we would have to give notice by the end of May. So that's my last statement, sorry.
Okay. All right, one more question, Mr. Allen, go ahead.
Mr. City Manager, how much was the last amount we paid, the annual amount we paid? In other words, the year before the year that's due?
I don't know.
The year that the contract actually did legally end?
I don't know.
Okay, but it was probably less than 15,500.
My assumption is it was somewhere closer to the 8,000 or 9,000, but I don't know that number. That was executed without, under the city manager's, the previous city manager's authority, without going to council. So, but we do see a cost increase year over year.
Right, but the last year of the legally binding contract.
I would have to go back and look for that.
All right. Anything else before we vote? All right. Please vote.
I apologize. Could you please re-vote? Motion passes with council members Allen and Robles voting yes, Mayor Hussey voting yes, Councilmember Henderson votes no.
Thank you.
All right. So request for future agenda under this section, pursue the requirements of the Brown Act. No items may be considered other than the listed below. So on mine is item 1, relocation trash enclosures at Veterans Freedom Park. And this was a while back when myself and Councilman Robles, when we had a discussion, when we named it, and we had all these brainstorm ideas about beautifying that park. And I don't know if, I'd like to talk to the council about this. I know, or we wait till after the budget for this year, but I'd just like to go over it with the council and see if we want to move forward on brainstorming ideas. But this is for the trash enclosures, and the reason why, because it's an eyesore when you drive into the park. So I'll request that if you guys would like to move forward on this. Councilor Henderson?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I'm a little bit confused, I think. Wasn't this item on the agenda and then pulled?
Yeah, it was on there and pulled. I didn't do it the right way. I should have requested to speak on it, so.
It did take two of us to get it wrong. Yeah, we
So-
did not follow the proper process, so we're going back to the proper process.
You're asking for it to be formally agendized?
Formally agendized, so we can have discussion and vote if we want to move forward on it.
I second your motion.
My first and Councilmember Henderson's second, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and then we have Councilmember Henderson's request the staff provide informational update on the city's design roadway system. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had sent an email to the city manager asking, I think, if I recall correctly, whether or not we had a designated truck route system of roadways in Grand Terrace. And Mr. Wilson responded to the request and indicated that Grand Terrace had adopted a designated truck route system. And the reason why I brought it up is because, first of all, I wasn't aware that we had a designated truck route system. And secondly, it wasn't clear to me that if we had one, that the truckers were complying with it and that we had an enforcement mechanism to ensure compliance. And the third reason was at the last council meeting, we approved roughly $1.8 million in road improvements, one of which was Michigan Avenue, which I assume would be, I don't know this, but I assume it would be on the designated truck route system. And having that road improved, and it's in sore need of it, only to have it diminished significantly with 18-wheeler traffic was something that I thought the council ought to consider. At another city that I worked in, we had a designated truck route system, and I learned from my engineers that, and I discussed this with briefly with the manager, that the section width thickness of those streets that were a part of the designated truck route system was 3 times the section width thickness of the typical roadway that dealt with cars and SUVs and trailers. But for the typical 2-trailer 18-wheeler, it was 3 times the section width thickness of your normal roadway improvements. So, assuming we can get some answers, I was wondering, first of all, having this placed on the agenda so that we could discuss it in more detail if the council was of a mind to do so.
I'll second it. Because sorely needed discussion.
So it's a first and a second for future request. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, well, thank you, council. And let's see, city council communications, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last 2 weeks, even without a council meeting, has been fairly busy. At our last regular meeting, we had a presentation from the Coalition for Smoke-Free Grand Terrace, and the council was invited to their little walkathon at Rollins Park, I think a week later. My wife and I participated in that. As a matter of fact, we finished in first place as the walkers. It was a good time. Those are wonderful youth. I'm all very impressed with their life skills and their ability to focus on, I think, a laudable goal. As an aside, I may have mentioned this to the manager or not, but the track, I think, could be made even more beneficial with a sign of the distance when you walk around, how far you go, how many times you have to walk around it to reach a mile. I think that would be very helpful, not only for that group, but for leisure walkers like myself. Councilmember Allen, the mayor, and myself attended the League of California Cities Leadership Summit in Sacramento over a 3-day period of time. It was a fairly intense session, given when they started, when they ended, and the nature of the discussions. Speaking personally, there was a session on the proper role of the city council if complaints were filed against the city manager or department heads. There was an excellent presenter, and she took us through the process. By and large, in many situations, the advice of council was to remove itself from the administration of the various complaints and grievances that might be filed, particularly against the city manager. In my opinion, the presenter was one of the best ones at the conference, and I think there was general agreement that her presentation was very, very valuable to those present. A benefit to me personally was the time to spend with the mayor and Mr. Allen. We had our plane delayed several times, going to and from, and the mayor rescued us on both occasions, but Mr. Allen and I had the opportunity to spend more time than we anticipated in the airport while we were waiting for a flight that would actually take off and bring us back to Southern California. And so that was significant to me. We found out that we have some similarities in our background and come from similar part of the country and so on and so forth. So that was a real benefit, and I look forward to continuing those kinds of discussions and fostering that relationship. I guess one of my nagging thoughts regarding the session was, if you recall, last year, the state of California had a $100 billion budget surplus. I repeat, $100 billion budget surplus. This year, the governor originally started out with a $17 billion surplus, which went to $23 billion surplus, and we heard estimates in Sacramento that the deficit would be as high as $52 billion. The reason why I bring that up is because the league is asking for $3 billion in assistance for homeless services, a laudable goal. I think everyone generally supports that. It's just, for me, again, the timing, asking for $3 billion sustainable in a year where deficit spending is obviously on the horizon versus last year when we had a $100 billion surplus and money was being thrown around Sacramento and local governments like crazy. So with that said, we had a wonderful session regarding the ask, and we had a wonderful rally as a group making the presentation to our legislators. And so we'll have to see where it ends, but the timing could have been better, in my view. Just a few days ago, Councilmember Robles, Mr. Hussey, and myself attended the Inland Empire Division quarterly meeting, and it was an excellent attended by many of the 38 cities that are represented by the division, and we had a chance to collaborate with our colleagues from other communities. Several of the presentations given were similar to the presentations we had heard in Sacramento, but were valuable to the group nonetheless. A couple points in closing with respect to our time in Sacramento. We had a chance to briefly meet with Assemblymember Roth, who is covering for our district while the permanent assignments are shaken out over the next 2 years. He was in a hearing at the time and couldn't spend much time with us, but we had valuable input and insight provided by his Chief of Staff, Gilbert Martinez. I think we will benefit from that. And last, I know that Grand Terrace needs to up its game in terms of legislative activity. If we are to be successful in obtaining funds for our projects, our priorities, that's, in my view, 24/7, 365-day activity for those organizations that are proven to be successful. In closing, these are nonpartisan jobs: City Council, Board of Supervisors, So our contacts with whether it's Republican, Independent, or Democrats should matter when we're trying to raise money for the city of Grand Terrace. And I mention that because Assemblymember Pete Aguilar is a local, born, raised in Redlands. He's our representative. He's a part of the House leadership, and he just announced some significant contributions to local cities and hospitals with funds that could come to Grand Terrace if we make the right effort. So my challenge to myself and my colleagues and to staff is to establish and maintain and nurture the required relationships that are necessary to have an effective legislative agenda and the implementation of the programs associated with that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Councilmember Allen?
So, thanks, Mayor. Like Councilmember Henderson mentioned, I attended the Cal Cities Leader Summit with Mr. Henderson and the mayor. And what I took away, the most important things that I learned from that was like you mentioned, whenever we went to visit, we met Mr. Roth's chief of staff. You know, the most important thing I learned was the timing of how important the timing is when it comes to requesting money, and how you know, early in the year they have the pot, and by the time we're requesting it, it's already gone. And so I think that one of the challenges I'm sure that Mr. Henderson is putting forward is to make sure that we're ahead of the power curve when it comes to requesting that money from the state. And also, the other thing I remember learning was make sure that you're talking to the right people. And that isn't always the local people. You know, we would like to think that our local field reps are really getting the job done. But, you know, one of the things we learned was it's always good to back that up with contacting the person up in Sacramento if you have a point of contact. And now we do with Mr. Hernandez. You know, we met up there at Mr. Roth's office. And that's a good thing, you know. Also, one of the sessions that I attended had to do with organized retail theft, and how this plague of organized retail theft that's hit our local retailers. And they had the national the person responsible for CVS and the person responsible for Rite Aid and the person responsible for Walgreens, their anti-theft person over all their whole chains, where each one of them were there, along with California Highway Patrol officer who's in charge of the state's organized retail theft ring, crime fighting ring. And it was just amazing to me that what we learned was that they're just like the mafia. This is their job. People that do this, they wake up in the morning, they eat breakfast like we do, brush their teeth, drink coffee, take a shower, get dressed, and they go, and at 9 o'clock, they go to CVS and they steal. At 11 o'clock, they go, you know, it's their job. And they have lunch, and then in the afternoon, they go to another store, and then they're done for the day. And then the next morning, they go, and that's what they've learned from their arrests of these people. And it's very organized, you know, and they practice, rehearse, and it's amazing, you know. But they had that's one thing that I took away from that was the value of those. Mayor, let me ask you this: what are the name of those cameras?
What's the one, Lieutenant?
Starts with an F. Yeah, flock. The value of the flock cameras and fighting the organized retail theft crime, and so that's something that, you know, we can, you know, look at for our city also. But because those items that they steal, they end up on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. They even repackage them. It's so organized, they have people working for them that repackage the stolen items and market them back to places like Big Lots and 99-cent stores. You know? And you think you're getting something that's just totally legit. And so that's something that I learned. So that's why we need to look more at these flock cameras. And then there was also a session on school safety and security, and the efforts that they had the presenters there talking about the things they were doing to, some of them were hardening their schools, and some of the discussion was on increasing the security staff and things like that. But the takeaway message was that it has to be a collaboration between the district, the law enforcement agency over the district, and the jurisdiction or the municipality. The three of them it has to be a collaboration. That's what it seemed like this entire 3-day event was, the value of collaboration with partnering agencies and jurisdictions. I also went on that anti-smoking walk, and I gotta tell you, those kids, someday those kids are gonna be running this city. They are really on the ball, and they really wanna help this city, improve the city and make it a better place, and I applaud them for it, and I hope to see them doing more. The last thing I wanna ask about, and maybe the city manager, is, I might have mentioned this a while back too. I was talking with one of our residents a couple of days ago, and he asked me if I could tell him why Rollins Park was named Rollins Park, what was significant about Richard Rollins, and I didn't have an answer. And I couldn't, he asked me then about T.J. Austin, and I couldn't answer him that. And he asked me about the other place names we have in the city that are named after people, and I couldn't answer them because I have no idea what makes Richard Rollins significant. I'm sure he is, and I'm so happy for his family that there's a park named, but who knows? And so my point is about bringing this up is that I think this would be a great project for our historical and cultural committee, and somehow get it on the city website. The reason T.J. Austin Park is named this is because T.J. Austin was da-da-da-da-da, and, you know, and Gwen Karcher, and Richard Rollins, and Mike Todd Street, and all these various place names we have named after significant citizens who have contributed to our community. It'd be great for our people to know that history. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. Councilman Robles?
Yes. So I serve as the city's representative on the San Marino County Transportation Agency, and we met April 6th. And we also have a transportation committee that met the 13th. Both were generally routine. It was a lot of contracts that were being adjusted for major projects that are very, very long term. The thing that's worth mentioning is that after the transit committee, the SCAG executive director came and his planning staff to discuss, I guess, because I'm new, and I was like, well, why are we coming to these? Because from SBCT, I got appointed to a SCAG committee, and we're getting a lot of presentations. And so I was like, well, I'm going to catch up. So it turns out the people had been there, some people 30 years in office and 20 years, also were a little bit confused on why we're having a bunch of presentations instead of discussions. And the discussions that were shared by the body to the SCAG director was the inland region is impacted by the port activity and the siting of warehouses, and also the transportation gridlock it provides. So the SBCTA leaders who are been more accomplished on this have been working on an express lane for truck traffic. And the feeling is that this area is getting a disproportionate burden of the cost for these when, you know, it's not just benefiting us. So there's been some discussions about some of the port activity being rerouted other places. And the director did hear these, so I expect some policy adjustments and discussions coming forward. The other concern is because of the deficit, the governor's budget doesn't show any increase in transportation funding, so it's going to be an issue about transportation funding. There is some slides that I need to share that the planning person said that before they used to go out in the communities and kind of do an assessment. But, you know, the areas are very huge. It's from Ventura County, Orange County, LA, Riverside, and us, which I brought up is why in this day and age are we still in a transportation planning organization that's so large when counties like San Diego have their own. So possibly that's going to be a future discussion because the law says you have to have a metropolitan transportation agency to receive federal funds, but there has not been an adjustment of what that transportation agency is. Also attended, I missed the meeting for SCAG the following day because it's a 2-hour drive and my back flared up. And it was just not going to, but it was just presentations on 15-minute cities, so it wasn't anything substantial. So also attended with my peers the Inland Division meeting. It was very informative. We have a new president of the league who introduced himself to everyone. We didn't get a chance to meet him. I don't know if anybody else did, but he was saying, don't ever leave money on the table, that they had their lobbyists there. You know, and I mentioned that, you know, we don't pay for any piece of any lobbyist or anything for this city. I think this is the first time since I've been on the council 11 years that we've any participation on the league's legislative day. And it's because the mindset of the city's been, well, you can't pay for travel to Sacramento. Or we can't afford to do this, we can't afford to do that. Well, I think, you know, thank you, gentlemen, for going because you've changed the paradigm to, if we're going to spend 10 cents to get 500% more, you know, it's something that we need to look at. And as anybody who knows me knows, you know, I do family genealogy, and every now and then on Ancestry you have a cousin match. Well, I happen to know who the father of Congressman Pete Aguilar is, and his father and I are fourth cousins. So, Pete, you're my cousin. You have to help us out. And I think by the time you're fifth cousins, there's no laws against it, right? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Robles. And yes, I want to emphasize, you know, I appreciate my colleagues going up there with me. I was their Uber driver, and they are terrible tippers. I did not get one tip back and forth to the airport, but I drove up there in the little Prius, so contrary to popular belief, those Priuses do go pretty fast. And it's a beautiful drive, you know, the flower bloom and stuff, but it gets you thinking when you're driving, you know, stuff's going through your head, trying to get a battle plan going for our city. And a lot of information up there. They passed down a lot of stuff, and like Councilman Allen is saying, you know, the flock camera system, you know, how valuable that is for places and how much it has helped cities, and, you know, even like for the Amber Alerts, you know, kids getting, you know, rescued and stuff. And I know Michelle mentioned about trafficking, you know, seeing cars, and, you know, our camera system here may be old, but it did help with solving murders and stuff. So we have to, you know, the sheriffs can't be everywhere. And just like what Mr. Sanchez is saying, you know, the speeders, you know, we got those blue cameras. So, you know, we're trying. So, but as Councilman Henderson said, you know, legislation action, you know, when we went and handed the paper that the council approved for the Mount Vernon slope, the camera systems, I know Mr. Gallo, we've working on it for a long time. And with as they talked about our flood control. And I was hoping the county was still here because this city has limited resources. We need the money for our residents. And, you know, it's out there. And when you're handing something to somebody who's represented you, but kind of like just got handed, you know, we felt like the stepchildren because I was trying to get a hold of, you know, we got divided because everything got redistricted. And I don't know if we were forgot about or what, but besides that, we're going to move forward. and the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We have to make Grand Terrace known by these legislation. We have to get what belongs to us. We need our rights. We pay taxes. We might be a little city, but we're a strong city with big vocal cords, and we have to get what's promised to us. And we have to do it to maintain the safety of our residents too. First and foremost, public safety and the safety of our streets, that's the big thing. Flood control, we've seen it. I live on one of those streets. I have to move my trash cans down away from the curb, otherwise they end up at the end of the street. We had a sinkhole that happened. Thank God nobody got hurt. But, there's resources out there to help us. We pay taxes for it. And our representatives, we're nonpartisan, but they need to represent us. That's what they're there for. So they have to put all that away, all our different things, and come across the aisle and shake hands and work for the betterment of our citizens and our future. So that just motivated us. I don't know what was happening in the past, but like Councilman Robles says, we're investing a little to get a lot, and we're going to keep on fighting for everybody here. And we have a strong committee and a strong volunteer program here and residents that will help us fight. So besides that, we had to go, Councilman Allen didn't mention his little bulletin up here, this little plaque. We had to stand out there at the park and hold that sign. I don't know, we were all to the side, but they talked about, the mayors got up there and they talked about the top 12 cities, how they're the Big 12 getting everything. Sacramento, Los Angeles, the Big 12 cities, San Diego. So they want more money, but they have bigger problems. But everybody has a homeless problem. $3 billion. One of the former assembly members or county representatives, she was saying that it's, if we can't get the $3 billion, just don't take away what we already have, to keep these resources going. I think, sometimes you look at the money spent, sometimes bandy, but I think the legislation needs to do some tough love and personally, and make sure that these resources are done and these people are put on the system and being taken care of. So, but we went in there, we talked about AB 1708, which is theft. The league supported that. AB 367, controlled substance enhancement. The league supported that. The $3 billion annual help to city increase housing supply and prevent homeless. The league supported that. SB 423 and SB 35 by Senator Wiener by rider approval of multiple family housing developments and Chapter 366 status of 217. The league opposed that. AB 1630 by Garcia by right approval of student, faculty, and staff housing projects. The league opposed that. Like I said, $3 billion. SB 43 by Eggman, behavioral health. The league supported that. SB 363, also facilities for inpatient residential mental health and substance use disorder database. The league supported that. And invest $1 billion in reimbursement of local governments for unfunded state mandates. The state owes nearly $1 billion to local governments for 2 decades worth the costs related to state mandated programs. The league supported that. And any proposed reduction eliminating diversity of essential local revenue sources, the league opposed that. So that was at our Sacramento level. Over here, what Councilmember Henderson, Councilman Robles, when we went, in the inland part, we had it at the, how do you say, Yamavan Hotel. I didn't even know they had a hotel there. And beautiful, the tribal staff that were there, very informative. There's another person that you know, Sylvia, the lady, the tribal chairman. She, yeah, grew up or friends of family, but the history, and I know Councilman Allen would like that. She talked about the history of all the lands here and stuff, really informative. But the legislation, our lobbyists for Sacramento for the league, and they talked about AB 6, transporting planning, AB 17, personal income tax rate. They talked about AB 1000, which is Assemblymember Reyes land use, good neighbor policy. This bill, I think they're opposed because the bill would establish a good neighbor policy for setting an expansion of logistics facilities would prohibit local governments from approving warehouses or local facilities of 100,000 or more square feet and 1,000 feet of sensitive receptacles. The local government may approve warehouses within 1,000 feet of sensitive receptacles, but not less than 750 feet may be set standards. So some with the warehouses that are going on, the AB 1476 Community Redevelopment Law, and then AB 1748 Ramos's Quality Logistic Project. So they just talked about that, and AB 2357 about surplus land, and SB 423 Senator Wiener's land use streamlined housing approvals, which we already talked about the league, and then the SB 747 Surplus Act. So I know, well, we had a public comment, and Michelle, she likes all these SBs and ABs. I'm confused. I don't know what SB, ABs, what's going on. I'm trying to get what we can for our city. But I know the lobbyists, and we really need to move forward. And on that, a couple other things, Councilmember Allen, Richard Rollins Park was named after a gentleman, Mr. Richard Rollins, who's a volunteer opening and closing the parks, and he would clean up and take trash before we had the system going. And Omnitrans is still hiring. They're looking for career-oriented jobs. Just pull up Omnitrans on Google. They need drivers. It starts at $18 an hour. Then after 6 months, you get $20 an hour, but that's with benefits. So, and then they also they need maintenance guys. And I told before they have also a mechanical program, technician program from Valley College, where you get an apprentice program. You almost pretty much guaranteed a job turning wrenches and fixing buses when you graduate. I also attended, like we had the pastor here, the Easter egg hunt for Living Word, which is a great success, and a lot of residents here. They had over 1,500 people come out, and 90% were residents, and they remember the old days when they used to have the Easter egg hunt. It was a good family event, of course. It was warm that weekend. It seemed like, so I guess it's better than rain. And then I attended the Heart Matters Easter egg hunt for our foster family, the program that they have here. And it was really great. The foundation was there, and a lot of other organizations to help kids, for finding, getting a permanent home, and then the volunteers working with the kids and just giving those kids, a sense of normalcy. But it was a beautiful day for both days, and the volunteers that put that together for the, the care of the residents and the care of the children and people that probably don't have anything. And this Thursday, the 27th, at Grand Terrace High School is going to have an engineer program, a display from 5:30 to 7:30 at the cafeteria, so everybody's invited. So you get to see how these kids are smarter than you and get to put stuff together. And I always like watching it, but then I feel bad, I was like, but, it's just amazing what they put together and stuff. And, and, of course, today, of all the technology we have and stuff, imagination put on paper to build, and then they did it. And I think that's about it. But, I enjoyed my time in Sacramento. Thank you for the residents of Grand Terrace allowing the city council to go there and letting us be your voice and to continue to fight for you guys. You're not always going to get the win, but you're always going to stand up and keep going, right? And we're going to have to keep going. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. So it is disappointing on having that. It feels like the wind was knocked out of us when we turn our registration thing in every year and think it's moving forward. But we're just going to have to hold our feet under the fire and make sure. And you have to have the voice. You have to have the voice to get anything. So long-winded on that. Sorry. So, City Manager, you have any comments?
Just one quick one. The Wingstop on Barton Road is having a grand opening Thursday at 10:30 in the morning. And it's great to have a new business in town and anchoring the shopping center there, so I hope anybody that can will attend. Thank you.
They moved it to Thursday, or is it Friday? Thursday?
Thursday, there was a conflict, and I think they adjusted so that you could.
All right.
You could get you could be the first guy to get wings.
Yeah, I couldn't go Friday either. All right, so we'll watch our two vegetarians have wings. Ken, Mr. Allen, you going to take one for the team, and we'll, maybe they have Beyond Meat wings or something. It was a joy with these guys, and I felt bad eating all my good food while they were on a great diet. So there you go. But I had a good time. But all right.
Just want to confirm it's Thursday at 10:30?
Thursday at 10:30. They originally had it set for Friday, and there was a conflict, and they adjusted for that conflict. So Thursday at 10:30.
Thank you, sir.
So is 10:30 when's going to start, or 10:30 when you want the council there?
I will reach out to you tomorrow.
Okay. All right. You want me to get the Prius and pick everybody up, and we'll...
Yeah, just for old times. Yeah.
I like that little car. All right, well, I want to thank, my council, my colleagues here, and the city staff, and for all the presentation we have, and we're honored in closing for, I have my thing here, for Dell, I'm sorry. Honor in closing for Dale Snowman and Doyce Nicolai. So, Grand Terrace long-term residents, and, it's always sad when we lose somebody in this city. It's a close-knit city. And, but prayers and thoughts for their families are going through comfort and stuff. And I want to thank everybody again, and, God bless everybody, and thank you for people who come out and speak in a public comment. That's all I have. Good night.